Unseen cracks in silicon. A narrative analysis of security vulnerabilities, hardware flaws, and exploits. Cybersecurity Concepts and Analysis Series, Technical Narrative Report. Security vulnerabilities are structural defects in software or hardware that cybercriminals exploit to conduct unauthorized attacks. While software bugs are commonly patched over the network, hardware vulnerabilities such as rowhammer, meltdown, and Spectre stem from microscopic physical design limitations. These hardware exploits breach basic isolation boundaries to read protected memory. Yet their specialized nature makes them primarily targeted threats. For standard users, routine software updates and physical device security offer robust protection. The digital locksmith, vulnerabilities, exploits, and attacks. Imagine modern computing systems as grand, highly fortified digital castles. Every line of code written by software engineers and every microscopic circuit etched into a silicon wafer forms the structural foundation of these digital walls. However, despite rigorous engineering standards, no complex creation is entirely immune to human oversight or unseen physical limitations. In the lexicon of cybersecurity, any underlying software or hardware defect is referred to as a security vulnerability. If a vulnerability represents an unnoticed crack or an open window in the castle wall, an exploit is the specialized lockpick or weapon forged specifically to breach that exact flaw. A cybercriminal acts as the adversary who unleashes an exploit against a vulnerable system to execute an attack. Their ultimate objective is to gain unauthorized access to the system, exfiltrate private data, or seize control over specific computational resources. When physics outpaces silicon, the rowhammer paradox. While software bugs can typically be patched with digital software updates, hardware vulnerabilities stem from physical design flaws embedded directly into physical microchips. To understand how physical hardware fails, one must look at the microscopic architecture of random access memory RAM, the high-speed volatile memory responsible for holding active application data. At a fundamental level, RAM consists of billions of microscopic components called capacitors, which store tiny electrical charges representing binary 1 south and 0 south. To meet modern demands for higher memory capacity and smaller device footprints, engineers arranged these capacitors extremely close to one another. However, this microscopic density introduced an unexpected physical phenomenon. Extreme proximity breeds electrical interference. Cybersecurity researchers discovered that changing the electrical charge of a capacitor could physically influence adjacent capacitors. Capitalizing on this physical design flaw, researchers created an exploit known as rowhammer. By repeatedly and rapidly reading and writing to a specific row of memory cells, literally hammering, the rowhammer induces localized electrical interference. This crosstalk forces neighboring memory cells to flip their binary values from 0 to 1 or vice versa, silently corrupting data stored within RAM without triggering standard software error checks. Ghosts in the processor, the saga of Meltdown and Spectre. In 2017, the security world experienced a seismic shift when Google security researchers publicly disclosed to monumental hardware vulnerabilities hidden deep within modern computer processors, Meltdown and Spectre. These flaws were not restricted to a single model. They affected virtually all central processing units (CPUs) manufactured since 1995, spanning personal desktops, laptops, servers, smartphones, smart IoT devices, and global cloud infrastructures. These vulnerabilities exploited performance-boosting hardware features designed to speed up processing. Meltdown, melted away the fundamental boundary between user applications and the operating system's privileged kernel. An attacker exploiting Meltdown could bypass security checks to read all physical memory on a given system, including secrets held by the OS. Spectre broke isolation between different applications. Spectre tricked programs into revealing sensitive data handled by other active applications, leaking private memory across isolated software boundaries. Both Meltdown and Spectre operate as side-channel attacks, rather than forcing open, locked software doors. Side-channel attacks observe physical implementation metrics such as microsecond timing, differences in memory access. Because these attacks interact with legitimate underlying processor mechanics, adversaries can run them repeatedly across a target system with virtually zero risk of causing a system crash or triggering security alerts, enabling them to harvest vast amounts of confidential data in complete stealth. Risk assessment and practical defense. While the discovery of Rowhammer, Meltdown, and Spectre shattered the assumption that hardware was inherently immune to exploit tactics, practical threat modeling offers reassurance. Hardware vulnerabilities are tied to specific physical chip architectures and device models. Consequently, they are rarely deployed in broad automated attacks across the general public. Instead, hardware exploits require specialized technical execution and are predominantly utilized in highly targeted cyber operations or advanced intelligence campaigns. For the average individual or standard enterprise, traditional defensive controls remain highly effective. Traditional malware protection maintains automated blocking against the malware droppers and execution vectors needed to deliver exploit code to local machines. Good physical security prevents unauthorized adversaries from gaining direct physical access or local console privileges necessary to execute localized hardware exploits. Major hardware exploits: vulnerability Rowhammer, targeted component RAM/DRAM capacitors, attack mechanism, rapid repeated access to memory rows causing electrical crosstalk interference. Primary impact bit flipping that corrupts memory data and bypasses software controls, vulnerability Meltdown. Targeted component CPU memory isolation kernel. Attack mechanism exploits speculative execution to bypass kernel memory protection. Primary impact allows unauthorized reading of entire system physical memory. Vulnerability Spectre. Targeted component CPU speculative branching. Attack mechanism tricks applications into speculatively executing code that leaks secrets. Primary impact breaches process boundaries, leaking sensitive data across applications.
Bạn muốn học mạng máy tính nhanh hơn, hiệu quả hơn và có người đồng hành xuyên suốt? Khóa học mạng máy tính 1 kèm 1 sẽ mang đến cho bạn một giảng viên hướng dẫn riêng, xây dựng lộ trình học phù hợp với trình độ và mục tiêu của bạn. Bạn sẽ được thực hành liên tục trên các bài lab thực tế, rèn luyện kỹ năng cấu hình và xử lý sự cố mạng như trong doanh nghiệp. Với lịch học linh hoạt, hỗ trợ tận tình và tập trung 100% vào sự tiến bộ của từng học viên, bạn sẽ tự tin chinh phục chứng chỉ kỹ sư mạng quốc tế và sẵn sàng bước vào sự nghiệp quản trị mạng doanh nghiệp. Khóa học mạng máy tính 1 kèm 1 học đúng trọng tâm, thực hành chuyên sâu, sẵn sàng cho công việc thực tế.